Right, so we have around a month or so until Google hopefully wows us with some brand new smartphones, and on the surface things look really similar, but I'm telling you that you should wait for the Pixel 10 to be unveiled before pulling the trigger on anything else. Why? Well, give me a chance and we'll get into it. Just quickly though, hit that subscribe button for a second. Did that feel good? Well, hopefully it did, because I enjoyed it and it helped me out a ton. Cheers. So Google wasted no time in confirming those early rumours of an August 20th launch event for the Pixel 10 lineup. Instead of Mountain View this year, things are kicking off in New York, which is a return to form given that most of the Pixels have launched in the area. Not that the launch location actually matters for when we see a brand new phone. A familiar launch location is going to be the setting though for those brand new phones. There's the Pixel 10, the Pixel 10 Pro, the Pixel 10 Pro XL, and the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. We're not going to get drastically deep into the specs here in this video, as firstly, none of these details are quite concrete yet. You probably know what the deal is anyway, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little bit bored about talking about raw specifications, because I think in the grand scheme of things, they don't mean all that much to most people. Instead, let's lay out some of the real compelling reasons to hold out or wait until Google does unveil the Pixel 10 before you go out and splash any cash anywhere else. Patience is definitely a virtue, especially when it comes to the Pixel series. Whether you agree or not, I think when Google does launch a product, it also has some effect on those carrier stores and online retail outlets, as Google has managed to proliferate these places, probably more so than any of the smaller brands, because let's make no mistake, the Pixel doesn't make up that much of the wider Android industry. All of this should be taken on board unless it is that you want a foldable. I do think the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is going to be a good device. It's getting a couple of upgrades, a couple of small upgrades, whereas the recently released Galaxy Z Fold 7 could actually be the finest option on the market right now, or at least in most markets, as you can't get some of those really high quality Chinese foldables across the globe. I don't think it can hurt to see how the Pixel 10 Pro Fold stacks up though, before you drop any serious cash, and you will be dropping serious cash on a foldable, make no mistake. So let's get into this, as I do think for the first time since the Pixel 6 split into the two Pro tiers and the non-Pro tier, we're getting a base model which might be the most compelling, as it does have a triple camera system at the rear, and this is going to be a big change because it means that you're not effectively downgrading too drastically by picking up the cheapest version of the Pixel 10. You're not actually foregoing one of those sensors at the rear. We've had to wait for base Pixel to get a telephoto. I think it's one of the most asked for things, and while it probably isn't going to be as good as the Pixel 10 Pro, I think just having the option is going to, as I say, drastically change the value proposition for this base model. And without getting too much into the specifics of the rest of the device, you're getting an entry-level model that probably doesn't cut out that one key component to try and force your hand to upgrade to the Pro tier for the first time. Whether intentional or not, it has almost always felt like that with those previous models. The Pixel 10's core design is going to be a repeat of last year's. We know that that's going to be the case across the board. Personally, I have no problems with that. If anything, it increases the value of that base Pixel 10, as it's going to get technically the most upgrades across the board. For the first time in a while, this could really be the star of the show, and not necessarily the most expensive models. Money-saving experts will definitely be enticed by this device, and I do think it could be the one that people go and look at and want to upgrade to from older devices. Another thing we eagerly await is just what Google's presentation of Tensor G5, the processor, will actually entail. And traditionally the company's been light on the nitty-gritty details, but maybe this time around they might break from tradition. There is only so long that you can avoid benchmarks before people start to ask questions, and that is something that I guess a lot of fans out there have done over the past couple of years. Tensor keeps getting positioned as an AI-first chip as well, but most Gemini-powered content actually isn't unique to the Pixel series, and we are expecting some other functionality to come with this. Whether there's going to be too much made from the switch to Samsung Foundry to TSMC remains to be seen. I don't think they're going to even talk about it. We know that it's not going to be a quantum leap in performance over the G4. However, if we get efficiency gains that will in turn mean better battery without compromising on the experience, then I do think fans will be happy, at least for the most part. Then again, in the grand scheme of things, this chip probably doesn't matter all that much, so long as it improves on the predecessors. This is going to be that first wholly Google-developed processor as well, as you probably knew already. In isolation, I do think it's essential. Where we'll start to see gains, though, is probably going to be in the coming years. It's not ideal, but as we all know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Tensor isn't even where I think we can get the most significant, tangible upgrades when using these phones, and for a long time Google has clung to slower UFS 3.1 storage, while all the biggest and best Android phones have now upgraded to UFS 4.0 storage. Without getting too into the weeds with this potential upgrade, it just means you'll get faster loading times, better data transfer rates, and an overall, or at least hopefully, a better experience. It just will make things smoother, and on one of the smoothest versions of Android on the market. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, basically as our phones age, we notice shortcomings. The Pixel 9 has been a great product. I've loved using them as a sidearm. The thing is, it just isn't as fast as doing basic things like loading a web page or opening an app as other top tier Android phones launched over the past, say, 18 to 24 months. You can't really optimize this beyond the limits of the hardware inside, and we know that Google likes to optimize the hardware. If that 7-year update promise is going to be honored, which we don't doubt that Google will honor that, then it better be good when the phone is new, or these things will get progressively worse over time, no matter how much optimization they do end up doing. In tandem with that new chipset, I think we could get a sizable gain in day-to-day performance with simple changes like this, and I'm really excited to see what will happen. We're also starting to see some brands use silicon carbon batteries in their devices. However, we're probably going to have to wait for a future Pixel release before we get the tech inside a Google phone, which probably is going to roll out the Pixel 10, at least in terms of that battery hardware. We do know the battery sizes are probably going to get a minor bump. Charging is another bit of a mystery. The good news though is that the rumoured base model will get charging parity with the Pro, so that means 35 watts plus. Hopefully we get some more bumps across the board because, yeah, the charging isn't the slowest, but I'd like to see some improvements here as well. Another thing that we take for granted is that you can almost set your watch to a Google camera system, and after some very small teething problems when they first switched to that 50 megapixel sensor with the Pixel 6 series, I do think the company has really nailed the fundamentals to the point that it's easy to argue for the Pixel 9 series in particular being the best for photos on the market, period. No matter the situation, the Pixel or a Pixel nails photos, be that with that wide lens, the ultra wide, even when zooming in. However, I do think that could get even better this year, courtesy of a new ISP or image signal processor. This is going to reportedly be fully custom for the Tensor G5 chip. Basically, if this new ISP means faster photo processing, that's going to be a big bonus. If it allows for more imaging options because it can handle more data, we could even see more impressive images from Pixel hardware, more impressive than they already are. One area we are hoping to see more gains though is with on-device video processing, and this ISP might really help here. I do think Video Boost is borderline magic, and it's a little bit of a plaster over a problem that is going to grow as time over time as we start to get better imaging. But if Google can eliminate the upload-download requirement for 4K and 8K video, I do think the Pixel 10 might become one of the go-to Android devices for content creation, and we're eagerly awaiting just what other camera tricks the Pixel 10 might have courtesy of this new hardware. Better processing is just part of the equation, but it's really, really important to the overall equation. There's also a very big elephant in the room this year, as they've hung around from last year, because this is the first time that we're effectively seeing the reuse of a particular Pixel design. A bit of a retread, if you will. Because we have a fair idea of the core upgrades and not what they will look like in the real world, there is ultimately the question surrounding what happens to the Pixel 9. It will look almost exactly the same as the new phone, will have at least comparable specifications and a mostly similar software experience when Material 3 Expressive is added with QPR1 in a few months. If you want a Pro phone, the Pixel 9 Pro, the Pro XL, the 9 Pro Fold, I do think there's still great options. They will be cheaper and more accessible once the Pixel 10 series launches. They'll have about 80% of what makes the Pixel 10 or what will make the Pixel 10 a great buy. And come September, you will get some software parity as well. I think at the cheaper end, the Pixel 9a is a slightly different beast. There are a few more downgrades to deal with that device, but none of it will drastically ruin the experience. For under $500 of it at its retail price, I think it's a good buy, but it will come down even more once the Pixel 10 kind of shunts it out of the limelight a little bit. It may not be the best in all areas, the 9A that is, but it is a very solid contender for your hard-earned cash if you want a clean, consistent experience in practically every single area, maybe save the camera. The only problem facing the 9A could be that base Pixel 10. It'll be a substantial upgrade in the camera department over the 9A. It'll likely have a much better display, plus all of the touted Pixel Sense stuff that we've talked about here on the channel ad nauseum thrown in as well. Getting a discount on the previous models is almost imperative though, as anything close to the retail from last year or the retail price of the Pixel 10 series I think is going to be a really bad deal. So hang around, wait a bit, and you might get those deals that you are hoping for on the Pixel 9 if you've been eyeing it up for a little while. So waiting for the Pixel 10, is it a good idea? Well, we know that the official entire lineup is coming August 20th. It's not a stretch to imagine that we're going to get more details between now and then, courtesy of leaks, because it's just part and parcel of any big tech launch. It just seems to be the par for the course, as it were, for now. To answer the biggest question though, if you suddenly expect to be in a market for a new device very, very soon, or your contract's coming to an end, I think it would really be wise to wait for the Pixel 10 to at least emerge, or more details to emerge. We don't yet know if the Pixel 9 is going to stay in the lineup for the next 12 months, but fire sales on that device have already started to pop up. We've seen huge discounts since it was released last year. Once we know how those new models stack up against its predecessor, and therefore the wider Android space, you can make a better, more informed decision on where to spend your cash and whether to put a pre-order in for the new handsets. I didn't want to bore you with all of the tiny little details that you probably have heard a million times already, hence why we haven't been in the minutiae of all of the phones, but by this stage you probably know the deal. We're getting a cheap model. There's going to be 2 Slab Pro models, one smaller, one Pro XL. Then there's a Pixel 10 Pro Fold. The most significant sore point is, well, I think for most of you is going to be that the pricing is going to jump up across the board this year, which is another reason I think you should hold on until launch to see where those best deals will settle and whether or not it's worth your hard-earned cash, and whether you should just go pick up the S25 Ultra or the OnePlus 13. I want to ask you though, are you holding out for the Pixel 10? Do you care? Do you want something else entirely? Are you disappointed? Are you sad? Whatever it is, just tell me down in the comment sections below. Hopefully this has helped you. Again, I think we do this kind of thing every single year. You should always wait until the launch comes, if it's within a few weeks, that is. It's not that long to wait for the Pixel 10, and you'll get a better idea of where to spend your money. Cheers for watching though, and I will speak to you later.